I got the walk, there's a longboard walk. I know the talk, the longboard talk.
Wherever you join us from around the world, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, or you're just tuning in on behalf of friends, welcome along to episode 15 of Oz Longboarding, where we discuss everything to do with the longboarding lifestyle here in Australia. And of course, it's very similar around the world. And one thing that ties us all together as surfers is we need to have transport to get to where the waves are. And tonight we're focusing on those amazing machines which get us to the surf, carrying all our worldly possessions, boards, and assorted paraphernalia. This one's particularly in the back pocket of Mr. Matt Chojnacki, who's a bit of an expert when it comes to creating and maintaining and renovating these beasts. And we'll have a look at, in fact, we're in his workshop tonight, so that's going to be exciting as well. I'm Weeksy in WA, and this week's been a great week here on the West Coast. We've had a bit of rain, and that's made me feel very happy because my turbo blew up in my car and I haven't been able to drive, so I didn't really miss out on much. Over on the Gold Coast, however, the big man himself, Big Sean McEwen, you've had a busy week, mate. How did you go on the weekend with the Kira Longboard Classic?
Mate, had everything perfectly organised. We had 2 to 3 foot waves, sunshine, and good vibes. Don't know what else was organised, but that was the main thing, and everyone had a blast. There were so many people there. We had double the number of competitors, double the number of volunteers, and it was so good. Even the police came down and had a look at it.
Fantastic. And so obviously by letting everyone know I wasn't coming this year, that's helped you out dramatically.
Oh, yeah, that's what was the clincher. But we got the only day of good surf for the week, although D-Bar was going off today, but the Southern Points have been pretty ordinary since last Saturday.
And who took out the big award for the surfer having the most fun this year, the Mark McNamara Memorial Trophy?
T-Bird, Tony Bird.
Oh, that's right. I was thinking it was quite appropriate because this week we're talking about classic surf cars, and well, we'll be looking at a couple of T-Birds a little bit later on. So well done, Tony Bird, and bring back the trophy. Apparently he took it, supposed to stay at the coffee shop. But we'll track that down. A bit further north in the Sunshine Coast, and with a beautiful sunshiny shot over her right shoulder. Welcome along. Happy Thursday, Miss Kira Molnar.
Hey, how you going?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. How's things been on the Sunshine Coast? I know you've been a busy little beaver, and
yeah, I haven't really had that much opportunity to surf this week, which is okay because it's been pretty flat. And it seems like it's springtime and starting to go warmer because the northerlies are starting to hit a little more. So hoping we get a few more westerlies in before that summertime north winds hit. Yeah.
Looks like there's been some beautiful sunshine. I've seen some great photos flooding in from a bit further north of you at Agnes Water as well. A couple of the crews. Rorky, how are you, mate? Looks like he's making a few changes to his lifestyle to enjoy the sunshine more. Oh, there he is. He pops up. We'll go straight to him. The big fish, Mick Marlin, joins us this week. I put a call into Mick a little bit earlier on today. He sent us through some great photos of some classic surf wagons. Mickey Marlin, great to have you back on Oz Longboarding, mate.
Oh, it's great to be on Weeksy's Weekly Wank again. It'll be great fun.
I wasn't here last week. Did you see what happened? All fell apart.
Oh, I haven't seen that, yeah.
No, see, no one has. So that's the only reason they keep me here is because I know how to drive the computer. Mate, you're a couple hours, well, 3 hours south of me. How's the surf been in the southwest for the last week or so?
Oh, onshore, most of the time that's this time of year. Winter time down here, it's onshore most days and howling winds and swell and rain and snow and sleet and you name it, the lot. Yeah, you get the odd little wave between the showers, but that's about it. And there's those little secret places that no one knows about that you go to.
Don't tell Ryan Clark.
That's all.
So Ryan Clark's in trouble this week for giving up. Well, for featuring in a video that gives away a fairly well-known landmark near my little neck of the woods. But we'll get back to you in a little while, Mick, with a bit of inside information about some of these surf wagons. But joining us from Gestapo Central down in Victoria, Nathan Riverland, mate, how's your week been in stage 4?
Yeah, hey Weeksy, hey guys. Yeah, I'm in stage 3, so Melbourne's in stage 4, but I live a few hours away from Melbourne on the coast, so we're just in stage 3. But yeah, the waves have been all right. It's been pretty small, but the weather's been really nice to start off spring. We've actually had a few pretty warm days, like probably early 20s in temperature, so it's pretty warm for Victoria this time of year. But yeah, I've been getting in the water a little bit. I've been doing heaps of uni. I'm doing my last trimester of my communications and journalism degree. So that's been pretty busy. So I haven't surfed too much this week, but it's looking good the next few days. So.
Well, it sounds like, unless our man in Sydney's had a different week, sounds like we've all had a bit of a quiet one. Matt Chojnacki, how are you, big fella? Has there been waves in your neck of the woods this week?
Not really. No, it's for the first time. Well, it's just gone straight into spring and it's just almost hit the button. We had a nor'wester today and it swung offshore halfway through the day and it's flattened it like a pancake. But everyone's just really content. Everyone I know is just pretty stoked. Even so stoked, there's a lot of photographers are branching out and they're going to create a little mini movie documenting all the swells that we've had. Mick's on screen at the moment and his old hunting ground haunt of Narrabeen will be featured heavily on that doco, and I'm just about to tell you guys the name of it, but it's going to be one to watch because you've heard me talk for the last few months about how good the waves have been, and I'll get the name later on, but anyway, it's going to be tremendous. But I've been back to work. I have a lot of work to catch up on from a busy winter of surfing, and yeah, we're here at my workshop now where we specialise in the topic today, surf-related style cars. Just so happens to be heaps in the shop at the moment, and I'll take you for a walk around later and even give you a little tech tip tutorial. I've got some products that will stop you coming to see me urgently with your rust. Anyone who's watching out there, because there's nothing more I don't like than trying to tell good friends or fellow surfers or enthusiasts that I wish you to come to me sooner and ask advice, because once certain rust gets into certain areas, it's like cancer, and unfortunately it needs a lot of work to stop it. So, and it's great to have Mick on board too, because a lot of the photos that we're going to be looking at, and a lot of the stuff that I'm inspired by behind me is documented in a lot of his images from the 60s. So can't wait.
Well, Matty, you're pretty much in charge this week, since this is your particular baby. So maybe start out by telling us how you first got involved in surf vehicles and where it fits into your world. And then maybe we can take a look at some of Mick's older photos, and then we'll go through the tutorial side of things as well.
Yeah, we had a lot of questions come through Instagram and Facebook as well. So I'll ask you guys on the panel, just get some different thoughts and stuff as well. But yeah, for me, I was born into a panel beating family. My father and my mum run our family business, which is taylor&botham Bodyworks. It never was in my interest to be a panel beater as such, but as I got into cars and got my license, I realized that cars were essential to get to where we want to surf. And there's other things like accessibility, where you want to go, camping, and do you want to have your quiver in your car and have a bed in there, and style. And I was lucky enough to be able to combine all three of those in most of my cars. But the only way to you can't buy it. You've got to create it and make it, and get someone to work on it for you. And over the time, I just developed the skills and just thought, I want to do my trade. So while I was still traveling surfing, I did my trade certificate in my early 20s, and came into the business. I had sales and marketing experience too. But yeah, now we're here in the workshop, live family business. We have 5 really amazing staff members, and we specialize in everything to get your car rust cut out, general panel beating services and smash repairs, and rust proofing is a big one, and really good painting as well, and sealing all the joins and all the problem areas. It's like sort of our specialty. Anything from vans, wagons, 4-wheel drives, the whole lot. And for me, I've had Valiants, I've had vans, 4-wheel drives, late models and old models. But behind me is my Ford Econoline 1976 big American V8 van, which you can fit a 10-foot longboard in behind the back seat. Cocktail bar, captain chairs that spin around. Quiver carrier, 4x4 style. It's not 4x4, but you can go anywhere. And that's my lowrider Chevy on the right, or on your left, which is going to be period correct 60s style lowrider, but can fit my longboard in the middle and go surfing in it too. And yeah, questions I had for you guys was, are cars, these types of cars, or in general vehicles, essential for your surf routine? Weeksy.
Oh, look, for me, absolutely. Where I live is pretty handy. You can drive on the beach. And so basically my every morning is get up, go to the general store and grab 2 iced coffees. And so 2 for $6.50, they're cheap. And so I leave one in the fridge, go to the beach, check the surf. And what that means is by having a 4-wheel drive, you can drive straight onto the beach, cruise along until you find a peak that you like the look of. So a car becomes very important. The town is quite small, so at the moment I can just jump on a push bike and ride down the beach and go for a surf that way. But for me personally, I really love that freedom of and the sense of adventure of driving along the beach through the dirt tracks and things, finding a little spot for yourself for the day. So WA, we tend to cover a lot of distance as well as long drives between breaks. So I think a lot of the WA surf buses are set up for longer trips away. And I know even when I lived on the East Coast, I always had like maxi taxis, big vans with beds in the back, so I could have stock underneath the bed, sleep on top. So you never was stuck for somewhere to stay for the night. So I'm quite a big fan of the surf vehicle you can sleep in.
And we go to Kira. I know that you're surfing Noosa in the points very often, and not a lot of people. This is an interesting fact. Not a lot of people live walking distance to world-class waves. Are you one of them, or do you rely on your car to get to the beach?
Oh, I'm sort of close. So I'm probably like a 15-minute walk from First Point, I would say. So I live just behind the junction there. If I was taking a shortboard and the waves were pumping, for sure, I'd definitely walk. But having that longboard, and if you want to go a bit further to Tea Tree, it's a few more Ks than that. But I actually have a little Mazda 2. So I always really like that for Noosa in terms of slotting into all the little sneaky parks. So I find that super convenient, and having the board on the roof. But in recent times, I've actually been doing a lot of work and got a few more longboards and got a few more shortboards and everything that I want to fit in a car. So I'm actually kind of in the market for a van, I'm thinking. But my concern is whether I'll be able to find the sneaky little parks that I couldn't before.
I actually had 3 points to ask you guys, because there seems to be 3 facets to it. Any of the cars you see in a conventional beach, an urban beach car park. You've got the ones for accessibility, like, your adventure mobiles and your 4-wheel drives, as Weeksy said. Then, you got your quiver capacity, which usually doubles with a camping option. Something like a Troopy is probably the best combo of all 3. And then you've got, unfortunately, the practicality aspect, like you just said. And, a lot of those world-class waves are crowded. Fitting into those little car spots are essential too. But how about you, Nathan, down south in Victoria? What do you drive, and what's your use of a motor vehicle for surfing?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much like what Week was saying. There's so much coastline in Victoria, it's important to have a car, and I reckon it's pretty central to the whole surf experience. I just recently, probably 6 weeks ago, bought a IMAX, a Hyundai IMAX, after having a Subaru Liberty for maybe 3 years, so since I was about 17, 18. And yes, I've been fitting that out over the last 5 weeks, and really excited to experience van life, like traveling around, because obviously at the moment I can't really go anywhere other than around. So I've been really enjoying just driving it around, and definitely looking forward to going up the coast in it. But fitted it out, got a bed in there now, and plenty of room for the logs. So
Did you go with a wood frame, or did you go with a steel or aluminium frame for your bed?
wood, like balsa and wood. So I just had a mate fit it out.
Did you say balsa?
Balsa. Ply, sorry.
Ply.
Oh my God, balsa.
So you might go through your bed, mate.
Yeah, no, sorry, ply.
Yeah, no, you just chopped up a good old balsa D-fin and used as your bed, didn't you, Nathan?
Right, exactly right.
Oh,
Not
mate,
so
I'd be
much
coming
as
down. If you did that, I'd be coming over the border to get you. And Sean, while you're on the screen, you're a New Zealander. You've had we'll get through to some crazy stories between, I'm sure you, Weeksy, Mick, and myself have all had pretty crazy stories. But, what do you drive, and what's your function mainly? Apart from aircon.
Yeah, it's definitely aircon. I'm into the poor man's BMW at the moment. I've got a Hyundai Santa Fe. I really love everything from the economy of driving it, the ease of in and out of the traffic, the turbo, just fantastic vehicle to drive. In the old days when I was doing a lot more surfing and that, always station wagons, so you could throw stuff in the back, but throw the mattress in. And when I had the Fords, I'd be staying in the Ford International as such. Just park it up wherever, and you couldn't beat that lifestyle.
Yeah.
But just at the moment, the Santa Fe, love it.
Great. And our vintage car connoisseur and experienced surfer, Mick, what are you driving at the moment, and what classic cars have you got in your collection?
My old heap of crap is an old Ford Econo van where I can throw all sorts of rubbish in the back. But just to be a real wanker, I've got a 67 Buick Wildcat convertible and also got a 66 Thunderbird convertible. I did have a 63 Thunderbird Monaco, the Princess Grace model, but I sold that a couple of weeks ago.
Oh no!
Downsized the fleet.
Oh well, let's share that then. So, you guys seeing that now?
Mm-hmm.
Not yet.
No, I'm not either.
No, we've got your screen up.
No, sorry about that. So I'll keep talking, Mick. I'll find your cars and pop them up on screen for you. Hang on, carry on.
One big thing I notice about the East Coast and the West Coast is that you go over the East Coast, everyone's got vans because there's very few spots on the East Coast where you need a four-wheel drive. And they've got some great vans there, decked out, as you guys said, with beds and everything, and you can hang your wedgie off the tailgate. But in WA, everybody just drives four-wheel drives because you need them for the tracks and for up north and that secret spot where you are, Weeksy, down in the Great Australian Bight. You need a four-wheel drive down there.
So this is Monaco.
That's
Mick, we've got your Thunderbird.
No, yeah, the 63 Monaco Thunderbird.
yeah.
Now, what racks have you got on there?
Ordinary brand new sort of black racks that fit in gutters, and I sprayed them with silver paint.
Nice. They look very classy. Roof
And
racks.
that's they look classy from this distance. But that's in the WA Surf Gallery, and that's a 64 Thunderbird I had a few years ago, and about 15 years ago I sold that.
So you just about get a longboard in the boot, Mick.
Just about. You can sleep in the boot. But that was a beautiful car. That one, it's in Queensland now.
Yeah, I saw you sold that. Oh, wow, there's the Buick.
That's
Unreal.
great.
There's the Buick, yeah.
It's got a very 80s style flame job on it.
Yeah.
But I like the wheels. The wheels are cool. Oh, yeah, while we're on this, can we go through some old slides? I wanted to talk about the history of cars being used in surfing. And, I mean, for me and my history locally, at least, I know the Duke, who brought surfing to the Northern Beaches and brought it to Sydney and did his exhibition. He came on horse and cart over. He must have gone through the western suburbs back then. And they came over in horse and cart. And they bought some timber from the timber shop just down the road here in Brookvale. What was it called? Still there in Hudson Timber, I think it was. And they built their was it Redwood? Built his Redwood surfboard, and then they got horse and cart. And they took it down to freshwater, and then that was, for me, that was the first surf wagon I think I've ever seen. There's a picture of the Duke in it with his board hanging out the back, and it was horse and cart. But a lot of you guys in the 60s and the late 50s were using whatever you could get your hands on, because I know cost was a big thing, but also anything with American style power was pretty important too. So you got some old, Weeksy's got some old photos to share through, but what was the desirable wagon in the 60s?
Oh, big Fords.
Yeah,
A
right.
lot of the guys from Brookvale. Oh, there's Billy Gibson's 64 Fairlane. That's a beautiful car, but he's had that for 15 years, sitting there like that. All he does is work on those silly boards that you can see in the background, and he's put no time into the Fairlane. And it's always next week. He's no doubt watching this. This is WA, and that's Bill, the same Bill with his Hilux towing this little car up the hill at the bluff.
So that's basically Weeksy towing Kira out in a little Mazda.
That's it.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier, Mick, about the West Coast and East Coast difference in cars. That looks like the West Coast too. But
Bluff, yeah.
what I mean, Land Cruisers and Range Rovers are obviously essential, but you see so many stuff like Holdens and Valiants, and you see, there we go, there's a Val VC Valiant, and Beetles. You see so many Beetles, you know, on the trip. What's that? Is that HR?
Now, if we can stick with those half a dozen there are from Patsy Wooden's book on the Bluff, and they're all about 30 years ago when everyone used to go to the Bluff in their old wagons like that.
Yeah.
Valiant, because no one had four-wheel drives then. And even that whole, my first trip to the Bluff was in a Mazda Bongo van.
Yep.
And you wouldn't take one of those there now.
Isn't it amazing, Nick, though, where those two-wheel drive cars used to go, whereas nowadays most people are too scared to take their Forbies down there. But this is a very famous van, this one.
Can we talk about this?
That's Wally and Keno's Austin bred van.
At Long Reef with the old kiosk there, I can tell.
Oh, is it Long Reef, that one?
Yeah. And that was the Coleroy boys wagon back in the day, wasn't it?
Yeah. Wally and Keno went halves in it, and Dennis Anderson, who you might know makes boards up in Byron Bay. Dennis did the artwork, which was off Murphy from Surfer magazine, and the Coleroy boys used to all fit in there, and they used to come down to Narrabeen quite a lot in it.
Sorry, I'm just skipping through, Mick, to some other photos of it. Keep going.
And wow, I'm loving these photos.
We can pull up on some of these. We can describe them.
Well, I was just going back to the more photos of the Baker's van all loaded up.
Yeah, that's the Narrabeen car park, and that would be very early going on the fields. I think about 1961 that was taken, and that was a great old van. That one, they used to fit all Nat and Westy and Bobby Bell and all the Coleroy guys used to fit in that one.
And the idea when we talk about, obviously you had guys with, you see Bob McTavish in his books and Nat, they always mention the guy who owned the car when they talk about a car. So it's almost like a feather in the cap, I suppose, if you had the surf wagon. Would I be right in saying that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and these were different times. No one could afford a car back then. They were really expensive and you weren't paid much. Anyone could buy a car now, second-hand car. But back then, cars were so much more expensive.
Yeah.
And this was taken from a movie. Yeah, that's the only colour shots I've ever found of the car. And that was taken off, I took that off the screen from the movie Ride a White Horse. Bob Evans would have photographed that in 16 millimetres. Yeah.
Basically, they used to make anything work. I mean, the old V-dubs, that's a classic there.
That's Richard Wilson and his 67 VW.
At the beach at the Yale Mall, of course. And this is the slightly more modern hire car version for the boys in Raglan.
Yeah, that was Dunny and myself in New Zealand. We went over for the World Masters and we called in at the secret spot. We shouldn't have mentioned it. No one knows where it is.
Oops. Now, over the years, the mainstream media has used surf imagery to promote themselves. And here we've got the RAC in WA using the surf wagon. But obviously, this trek up north, for you guys, you would have heard of the Bluff. You would have seen that sign there before, King Waves Kill. And so this is about almost 2,000 kilometres north of Perth. And some really testing tracks and tribulations. But people used to get in there in all sorts of vehicles. But did you ever get any of the nice convertibles up there, Mick, or was it just...
Oh, no way, Jose. they'd rattle to pieces.
Hey, I'll tell you guys an interesting fact, and I'll try and get up a picture of it. When Nat Young won the 66 world titles, you know this, Mick, he actually won a Camaro, and it was convertible. And there's a picture of him with his board hanging out the front, and he's sitting in the seat, all happy as Larry. You know, left-hand drive with the longboard sticking out. Quite possibly the most impractical car at the time on the market, you know, for a surfer. But geez, having a sports car back then, Mick, it must have felt like surfing. You know, having those early V8s and getting them in a small little compact sort of vehicle like that. Can you draw a comparison between driving a car because I certainly can. I can draw the comparison between a Cadillac or my old Chevy here and riding a traditional longboard. You know, you're just cruising down the boulevard. How about you with the sports cars?
With mine, oh, gee, there's nothing like it. But those things are just like big land yachts, and you just cruise, put your foot down, and off it goes. And the engine's barely ticking over those big V8s. It's 7 litres, and they just float down the highway. It's thoroughly impractical. Yeah. When you compare them to a 4-wheel drive or a van, they're just a wank thing.
Oh, they are fully. There was a caption in that Surfer mag where there's a picture of Nat, and it stated something like a fitting car for the animal, and referring to Nat Young as his nickname, the animal, because that sort of vehicle back then would have just been a rocket, you know, big V8 and, you know, just ready to rumble down the street. And I guess Nat, with the equivalent with his type of surfing, you know, was quite erratic and quite aggressive and strong and powerful. I suppose very fitting to win a Camaro.
So I reckon you can tell a lot about a person by what car they drive. And I think I have never really thought about it before, Matt, but what you're just saying then, and Mick, obviously your contribution of like the land boat, makes you wonder, like, if you can pick whether someone rides a shortboard or a longboard or a log or some weird hybrid thing, depending on what vehicle they drive. Now, someone who I would expect to drive a Mercedes or an Audi because he's a classy man, he's always got his act together, has joined us up in Byron Bay. Jack Twistle, how are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks, mate.
What are you driving these days, mate? I mean, I know you drive for a business, but what's your surf wagon of choice?
I'm pretty stuck at the moment. I got my I started my own lottery transfer business in Byron about 3 or 2.5 years ago now, and yeah, mate, to fit in up here, I just got a 8-seater Mercedes V-Class. It's like one of their new kind of Mercedes, I guess, but definitely not my surf car, and can't take that thing to the beach. One grain of sand is pretty noticeable on a black car.
Yeah, I know that feeling, mate. Driving VIPs, you got to keep it so perfect all the time. That's why you have multiple cars. Definitely. But this is actually the first time in a long time, I've only got one car at the moment, because I finally bought a 4-wheel drive that's nice enough to drive for long drives on the highway. Before, I used to have a city car and a beach car. But Matt, do you have a daily driver, or do you just sort of grab a different one each week?
I do. I've got a, that's what I was going to ask you guys too. I've got a daily driver, which I use for collections, and basically tomorrow I've got to do a 4 or 5 hour round trip of Western Sydney down to South Sydney, picking up parts, dropping it off. So I've got an air-conditioned turbo diesel twin opening door Hyundai iLoad, which is fantastic. But I do have, I'm going to share my screen, a couple of other cars that I do get to use regularly. And I'll show you those now. This is my work Instagram page. And my Combi Ute, which is probably the most practical one I've got at the moment. I've got a lot of cars, not heaps of them running.
Have you seen Ross Rutherford's Combi Ute?
I haven't, no.
So Ross Rutherford from Soul Board Store at Scarborough Beach, he's got a rat.
Oh yeah, I have seen that. Yeah. So
it's basically that same Ute, but like all rusted out and made it rat roddy looking. That thing's sick, man. How long is the bed in that?
Well, I can fit a longboard. Those longboards fit straight in, so you can just fit a 9.6 in it. So it's probably a 10-foot bed. Now, I don't do cars up here to win shows, but that did actually win, rightfully so, People's Choice at the Nationals last year with the V-Dub show. And I went surfing the morning of the show. So I had surfboard in it and took it to the show. But yeah, that's it's a 1971 single cab, 1600 motor, plenty of poke for it.
Oh, so that came out as a Ute. That's not a converted combi.
It's not converted, no. That's a proper combi Ute. And this is another version. This is my Ute on the left, and then on the right's a coffee van that we repaired for a customer with the high top there, and that'd be a pretty cool camper as well. But yeah, lots of 4-wheel drives and practicality.
Oh, Shorty 40.
Yep.
I love an FJ.
Heaps of troopies and yeah, Land Cruisers, and we just did the 60 series for a customer last week. I was telling you guys beforehand.
Do you name your cars? I've actually been having a conversation online today with the Subaru Foresters owners group about naming cars. So my 4-wheel drives always have names, but my street cars don't.
They usually come with expletives, the vehicles, and I'm working on them. Anyone who works on cars, as you can imagine, Weeksy, it's not always glamorous. And
Is that a 65 series?
that's a 60 series.
60 series. That thing's cool.
And then right behind me, I've got this wagon here. So for zoom in, you can see some patina on that, some original sort of paint. The last couple of years for this customer, I've been chipping away at it and sort of slowly restoring it. And I'll take it off share screen now and show you guys around. So this is the car now. And then we've got the surfboard out the back.
Tell us a bit about that surfboard fin combination, Matty. That doesn't look original.
No, it's a McTavish Keo, made in Brookvale around the corner, literally 200 metres away, with another Brookvale fin. It's a midget Farrelly fin. It has been replaced at some time, and it's been, grafted into the board, and it's, super rare, as is the car as well. But, and then in behind me is my Chevy Lowrider, 51 Chevy.
Sick.
Pretty much like a panel, like the bread van that Mick put up on his screen, the old Colorway. So it's got the 6 in it, but the 6 is fantastic, but it's actually going to get an 8 in it, V8 for lots of power, and an auto. It's got 8 switches for the air ride. So although it sits on the ground as a low rider now, it'll be completely adjustable. So I'll be able to get up over speed bumps or, anything at the beach.
Are you going to be able to do that donk bounce thing they do?
Oh, will be. And then inside's the most important thing. I'm going to have a bed inside and got all secret compartments to put all the air ride and everything. And I'm going to have a bed, fold down bed. It's going to be all shag pile in the back and period correct panel van chic, as with this Ford Econo line, which is a little bit excessive, but as if you wouldn't have bought it if it came up for sale. So we've resprayed that. It's got a cocktail bar inside from the 70s.
Go on, show us.
Yeah, can you show us the inside?
It's partially decked out. You guys see, it's all timber. You can sort of see a bit of the bar there, but I've stripped most of it out. Got to put a new headlining in. It's got double sunroofs, and the dashboard's getting upholstered tomorrow. That's why I got to go out to Penrith to get some upholstery done.
Does it come with a big dog that's good at hunting ghosts?
Oh yeah, fully. It's a full Scooby-Doo style van, really is.
Has it got a locking diff? Because with a locking diff, it's got a good clearance. That would go just about anywhere, even as a two-wheel drive.
It will go pretty much anywhere, yeah. I can put some flares on that as well. But yeah, we do heaps of Volkswagens too. That's a split screen, another local panel van that gets around. And these are 2 in progress. This one here is just about to get painted. The roof's been painted already. And then we do underneath the chassis. Now, this is the most important bit. I'm going to get into it in a moment. I'll show you in here, it's glossy here, and then it's got stone guard and underbody sealer underneath, but every single join in the vehicle is seam sealed, which means that I can guarantee these builds, for the rough and tough of the next few years at least, and any of the welding won't need to be redone because it's sealed, and all because of this little baby here and some of these
what's that stuff called? So was it gap sealer or?
When you take a car back to bare metal, you've got to be able to seal all the welds that you put in it. And this is an example of a Beetle. It's back to bare metal here. It's been completely stripped down, and we're replacing nearly every panel on the car. You'll see all the welds have been primed in between. Now we'll seal with the sealer gun in between those welds. A lot of factory cars these days come with heaps of sealer, and it's not very pretty, but we make it look really good at the same time as being really, really practical. But most importantly, it's what's between the sections of metal that you weld in. So you've got rust converter and primer. If it is, we usually replace all the new metal, as you can see, machines or shiny bare metal. If you do get surface rust, we've got metal conditioner, which wipes off surface rust on a bare metal panel. Different etch primers, and the big one, cavity wax. This is the stuff that will save your car from, dying a horrible death. And pretty much all the combis and all the Land Cruisers that we get in, they just get hammered in between the drip rails. And the drip rails are the gutters that Mick showed us before in his Thunderbird, which is where you put your roof racks. And they're made up of 3 separate sections that are combined together, and there's no sealer in between them. And the only way to rust proof it is to put that type of cavity wax or fish oil on the inside. Now, unfortunately, you can see this beetle here has no headlining in it, which allows me to access up underneath here. Most people don't want to get rid of their beautiful $1,000 headlining, but in order to get rid of that and rust proof in behind, especially an older car, something that's 10 or 15 or 20 years old, or anything with gutter rails suffers from it. And you see this beetle in here, which is finished, has brand new headlining, and you can't access the gutter rails. And something like that is enough just to put an extra 10 years on your car, because we find a lot of our repairs start from the roof in Australia. Unlike a place like England or Florida or East Coast America, we don't have salt in our roads, but the rust starts at the top and it etches and falls all the way down into the bottom of your car. So when you see rust in the bottom of guard, you see rust in the bottom of a tailgate or a door, chances are it's started from up the top and it's got in through your window rubbers and up through the top. But the big one is moisture in the car. Us as surfers and people who are divers and people who are spearfishing, fishermen and all of that, there's always moisture in your vehicle. And if you're camping in it, you're storing wetsuits, or you're an active person getting in and out of the car and you're, even just like a hiker or something and you've got moisture on you, it's got to go somewhere. And it goes up in the air and it just doesn't evaporate. It goes into all those little crevices of metal that are overlapped. And unfortunately, that's where the rust starts. By the time you see it on the outside, it's already too late. It started on the inside. So those products are key.
I've done my fair share of chopping out the old rust cancer out of cars, and it's a big task to repair. So obviously prevention being better than cure.
Yep.
So what would you recommend? So like, okay, I've just got a 10-year-old Subaru wagon. It's in pretty good condition, but I want to keep it without all the dreaded rusty bits coming out. What can I do? Because I jump in the car with wetsuit on just after I get out of the water. So, and I drive in the ocean. So it could certainly do with some assistance. What would you recommend?
Unreal question, Weeksy, because we actually had one on Instagram from the Vegan Voyager. He's exactly what you said. He washes his car out regularly underneath, but he's concerned that the sand from underneath and from the inside hugs the moisture and how much salt is in the sand. So theoretically, if you're on the full drive sort of track and you're going in and out every day, you need to make it a routine every week to clean out underneath your car, under the wheel arches. Invest in a gurney. It's only a few $100. Plug it in your garden hose, a few $100 to buy one, and you'll have it for a decade or something. Hose under the car, hose the front grille, and sort of in around the radiator support panel. I would show you what the radiator support panel is for most people, on your Subaru especially, because they don't have a lot of paint on the inside around the engine bays there. So that's an engine bay. That's your radiator support panel. And in here, you've usually got your battery trays. Subarus rust in the roof a lot, and a lot of those modern cars can rust around where your brake reservoirs are as well. And there's not a lot of sealer in there, and there's not a lot of paint. So if you hose off inside the radiator support, under the wheel arches, sort of around the chassis, you're stoked. But the big one is on the inside. It's really tricky to find out if your car's rusting on the floor, but a simple hand test just to feel the carpet. If you're getting in it wet, the moisture is going under the floor. So it might invest to see your local panel beater or your local detailer and get them just to lift the mat up and just to see what's going on underneath before any of those holes exist. Otherwise, if it is starting to develop, you've just got to cut it back to bare metal, treat the rust, or if it's got holes, nip it in the bud, cut it out, weld it in, seal it, and it's good as gold. And another question we sort of had, actually, someone else asked me about reliability, and they asked, do we envision electric surf vehicles in the future? Which fuel bills are obviously a huge problem for people like Mick and I. But yeah, what do you guys think about electric surf vehicles? Would you drive one every day to the beach, or?
Hell yeah, absolutely. I think I haven't had the pleasure of driving a modern electric car. I've driven a few over the years because I like the cars, but got a few friends who've got those Teslas, but I haven't had a chance to jump behind the wheel of one yet. But as a passenger, they're pretty good fun. But they're constant four-wheel drive. I reckon that could be converted technology. I guess the problem with those at the moment is range. So Mick Marlin, you wouldn't head off up to the bluff with an electric car, would you, mate?
Oh, no. there's a electric highway all the way down from Perth to Augusta, so you can hop down from Perth to Augusta, and there's a filling station in Dunsborough. So it's coming. It's just like petrol stations back in the olden days when people said that horses will never be replaced.
We've got one in Lancelin now.
The cars are.
Population of 600. We've got an electric car charging station in Lancelin now, which is incredible.
Right.
But,
Look at this. This is a guy in Byron, Matty. He's he has Byron Bay combis and he does all the weddings. And he's just restored a combi that's fully electric. I've got it up on my phone right here.
Yeah.
Hold on. Oh, you won't be able to see.
No. There has been a spate of people doing that to, conversions with it. Yeah, just speak, Jack, so I can see it.
Oh, yeah, I'm speaking. I don't know if
Oh, yeah, cool.
Is it? Can you guys see that?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, stay there.
Oh.
You're magical.
Unreal.
But, so what looks stock standard, but it's got all the new running gear underneath it, eh?
Yeah.
They do have kits for them now, and I think a lot of those like minis and cars like that you can convert in Beetles and stuff like that. But I think being those cars are unreliable if you don't service them regularly anyway. There's nothing wrong with the traditional carburetor and 6 volt for the really old cars, but it's just the maintenance side of things. People these days don't want to maintain things, and I don't know if electric cars, for myself, I can't see them being unless someone's getting them serviced every 3 months and making sure that the charging system and all the, the background of it is in good condition. Because typically surfers are pretty rough with their cars. So I can't see electric cars being durable. There's a bug.
You've mentioned bugs a few times. So this one here is our special guest tonight. This is the Mick Marlin's Wedge Rocket and the lovely Jeanette. But I want to point your attention towards the, hang on. I'm using my, I'm using my mouse, which has created confusion. Hang on, there it is. So, I just want to draw your attention towards the stubby holder here on the where the wing mirror used to be. So this is a certain spot just to the north of my little town. But tell us a bit more about that car, Mick.
Oh, the guy just brought it down the beach when we had the old men on Old Mal's up there years ago. And so he either had boards or someone put boards on it. I got Jeanette and Maggie to jump in for the photo. So it's a great little rocket there. I don't know what Matty would do if he saw that.
I'm looking at if you look down at the bottom of the car, you can see the rust there.
On the where the sides, that's a classic spot for the Volkswagens where that side step used to be, because the water, as you said, Matt, anywhere the water can accumulate, and that would have had salt water and seaweed. This is Wedge Island, and up at Wedge Island, basically all the kids have got cars. They start driving when they're about 8, 9 years old. And the kids have all got these unregistered cars that they can drive around the beach and down the dirt tracks and back to the town of Lancelin where I live, and they'd park in the dunes and then walk into town. Pretty cool. No exhaust pipes, a bit Mad Maxy up there. I love it.
Well, while we're on talking about reliability and rust, Nathan over in Vico, how often do you service your car? And on an old Beta, something that's over, say, 5 or 10 years old, do you spend money on it, like your old Subaru, or do you just go long times between oil changes?
I was probably servicing my Subi every, say, 5-6 months, maybe. I found I was pretty good with it, and I had to, before selling it a few 6 weeks ago, I did like a full big service and got everything done, because there's a few little things that you can pass with a general service, but when you're selling it, you've got to do everything for the roadworthy. So yeah, I think pretty important to service it. I was servicing my car probably about every 6 months.
Yeah. How about you, Kira?
Yeah, I'd be the same. I usually go by the K, so every 10,000 kilometers I'll usually go in and get a service. Yeah.
Do you keep it clean, or is it pretty sandy inside?
So I have weeks when I'm really, really busy and it gets really sandy. And then I do a big clean, and it just depends on how long that lasts.
How about I know you don't wear wetsuits very often, but does it ever get so bad that I know everyone has had this before, so no one can lie. Does it get so bad where you can smell the wet wetsuit smell?
If you leave it in the back of the car for a day or two, yeah, it stinks pretty bad.
Okay. Well, then we answered the question that we can be pretty bad because all that moisture's got to go somewhere. How about you, Sean? You had a good old laugh. You still got a Weddy in there from 1989, I heard.
I've actually got one that's even older than that. I got that red Long John with the flares that was at the Coke Surfabout back in the 70s. And that lives in the back of my car.
The Larry Bertelman one.
That's the one.
Wow.
So, with the Santa Fe, I look after that a fair bit, get it serviced regularly and everything. But I must admit, in bygone years, spending money on keeping my car maintained was not a priority. Yeah, in fact, it was, it was well down the list.
Well, as Mick was showing us, and a lot of the people have been sending in images on tagging us on Instagram and Facebook, those $100 beaters, the auction specials and the Valiants, those Holdens in the photos, Mick, they're not worth very much money, so you wouldn't be inclined to do an oil change. You just buy a new car.
No, they just drove them until they drove them into the ground.
Literally, till the wheels fall off.
All those old beaters, but nowadays they're worth a fortune, like that J in the background there. What model's that?
Yeah, that's an EH with the square tail.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favourite, that one.
Yeah, no, well, they're beautiful because they kind of borrow a little bit from those American cars as well, the nice chiseled lines. But, Weeksy, did that answer your question before about, rust-proofing your car and keeping it maintained?
Yeah, look, that's, you hear so many different stories, So I've used the sound deadening tar. I've used on my last four-wheel drive was a Nissan Patrol GQ, and the last four-wheel drive was a Suzuki Vitara, but I only had that for a short period of time. But then before that, I had an old Troopy, and that had some cancer in the usual places. But I've been trying to work out whether it's better to use the lanolin spray for the internals, or do you put the sound deadening tar stuff, or one thing I never thought of, and you mentioned before getting a hold of a gurney and giving it a squirt. I had an old man who lives in my town who's apparently some guru in the hot rod scene. He used to charge like $30,000, $40,000 for a paint job. The guy's next level. And he was always going on about don't squirt water into the grooves because you force all the sand and stuff and the seaweed right up into the cracks. So if you're using your gurney, make sure you only use it on the flat surfaces, not down into the cracks. Have you seen anything like that where you open up a car and you realise there's a heap of gunk wedged in where it should never have been able to get?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. But it's kind of like when we strip these cars back to bare metal, you really get an idea of where that sand ends up. And you're exactly right. I squirt it out to get rid of all the sand because the sand clogs up drain holes. And that can be in your doors. It can be in your, your radio support area, your engine bay. And the idea is to try and have no sand. Air blowers help with that. If you've got access to a compressor and you can blow all those, little access. So there is a lot of little,
Well, it's funny you mentioned both my Patrol and my Land Cruiser and my Suzuki Vitara, all three of them had blocked drainage holes in the bottom of their doors.
Yes.
Just clogged up with beach sand and lolly wrappers and whatnot. And that's where the rust was because the water couldn't get out. So as much as it's important to seal it from getting in, you've also got to give it somewhere to get out, huh?
Yeah, exactly right. And I'm just going to try and look for a photo of a chassis, but it's really imperative, especially four-wheel drives. I've been doing a service lately for a lot of our customers and offering it to actually get my hands really dirty. People might think it's shock horror, but actually take the scale that collects up on these four-wheel drive chassis, and their vans cop it as well a lot. You've got to take all that rust scale off. We dig out all those as many, sort of holes as we can, blow all the dust out, vacuum it up. You have to do it a couple of times because it stays in there like nothing else. Once you finally get rid of most of it, you can then start to apply, some sort of oil. We don't use silicon-based oils in our industry simply because it is the direct contaminant with paint, two-pack paint. So you go to spray and you get fisheye and all sorts of bubbles. You have no idea why because it's clear and it's in the air. But yeah, we use other stuff and we do use fish oil at the end of a job, but certainly not, at the beginning. But yeah, for the chassis and inside your doors, inside your guards, all those hard to get to places. You can't even, as I said, if you're not handy with your with the tools, go to your local panel beater or mechanic, get them to drill a few access holes, get some rubber plugs from, your local hardware store, and just rust proof it every 6 months or a year. Because if you're going to keep your car, especially if it's somewhat of a classic, or you've invested money into your turbo, Weeksy, I've invested money into my paint jobs and my engines and stuff, and my cars owe me, without even me touching them, they owe me 20, 30 grand before I've even put a spanner on them,
And I thought that's probably an interesting point for people as well. Like, so doing the turbo, the money I've saved by doing it myself, if I had like a normal job, I think I probably would have made more money from being at work than what I've saved by doing it myself. So it's not just the cost of the parts. You need to factor in the time, and you could be off doing something else. I personally really enjoy working on cars. So, the time is not really a relevant question, but a busy man like Mick Marlin, for example, getting dragged away from his various speaking engagements in museums and things, he might not be so free with his time. But I just want to share with you something, because there's a vehicle that anyone who's been to a longboard contest in Western Australia will be familiar with. Mick Marlin, you'll be able to back me up on this. Hang on, not that one. But Rod Lyons, one of our West Australian longboarding stalwarts, he's got a car which is sorry, messing me around at the moment, but he's got the big Ocker. Have you guys familiar with Ockers?
Yeah.
Yep. So they're Australian-made off-road vehicle. Here it is here, right? And so, can you see that?
Big red.
And so I'll just go to slideshow mode there. But so this is how we see it normally set up at the competitions and things. That's actually at Isolators, where the whalebone is. And I've never seen inside before. So I actually contacted Rod. In fact, I sent a messenger message to his business, Lions Air Conditioning, for all your air conditioning needs. But this is Big Red. So Ocker Home, it's the number plate. And he's taken it to some very interesting places. It actually looks like Arrawarra, but it may not be. But so you can see there, he's got the pop top. But let's get to the inside. So he's got the workstation with the stereo speakers to drown out any associated noise. But I've never seen inside it before. So it's got the little dining area with the pop top there. It's got the full, look at this, the full kitchen set up. And so
that's better than my kitchen.
Yeah, tell me about it, right? More food than mine. But so he's obviously taken it all around Australia. That's Big Red with the Big Red Rock in the background in the middle of the country. For anyone tuning in from around the world, that's Ayers Rock there. And of course, you have to, with big toys come big expensive fixes. He looks happy there, but I bet he wasn't, busting a tyre. But that's the, thanks very much, Rod Lyons, for sending that through. But that's kind of the other end of the scale, which is a vehicle that's dedicated to go surfing, go camping.
Yeah, that, as I said at the beginning, there seems to be 3 criteria with a surf wagon, and that one, apart from the practicality, Kira, you're not getting a car spot anywhere at Noosa or Manly or somewhere like that anytime soon. But hey, you could just park someone in, right, or create your own car spot with a car like that. You can go onto the Bronx.
Well, even create my own car spot.
I don't think that would actually get under the trees at the National Park car park. You'd have the same problem as I had with my camper van I had up there for Noosa. You sort of get there and go.
How did you go finding a park in that week, when you were here?
I really did not have much fun, Kira. I was either out at the Access car park or, in fact, I made friends with a couple of lovely people who were emptying the bins each day at the Surf Lifesaving Club, and they actually had a little bay marked out for me each day, which was awesome. But no, I went out to the National Park one day and got out to where it goes into the car park, where the boom gate is. And I was just like, oh, this is not going to happen. I had to chuck a used car between my legs and head back into town. But have we spoken about dream vehicles? If you had
that was another one, yeah.
Sorry, Matty, go on.
Oh, that's right. That was another one on the final one I wanted to finish on with the crew, go around. So, yeah, what about you, Weeksy? What's your dream?
Again, it's cars, it's like planes, it's like boats. There's no real one size fits all. But I think if it could only be one car and it had to be for surfing adventures as well as everything else in my world, I think I'd probably go the new V8 diesel Troopy. The Land Cruiser Troop Carrier. The V8 diesels are awesome. My little brother's got 3 of them, I think, and they're so powerful. They don't use very much fuel for what they are. Big heavy vehicle, but you can put your foot down in 5th gear and overtake at 110 kilometres an hour quite happily on the highway. Plenty of room for the boards on the roof. Plenty of room for the gear and stock and things in the back. So I think, yeah, the new V8 diesel troop carrier.
Unreal. How about you, Sean? Or are you happy with your Santa Fe, mate?
I love the Santa Fe, but I think the dream vehicle for me was actually my very first vehicle, and it was a nightmare. I had a 1948 Morris 8 Series E, and I learnt to drive in that. To get it started, you had to crank it. You had windscreen wipers that you had to use with hands. You had a little indicator that came out the side of the door pillar and all that. So that was an absolute nightmare of a dream for me.
So you won't go back to anything that's 6-volt that you have to wind up?
No, well, hey, that was a $20 special, and I wouldn't mind having one now. I've seen the price of them once again.
Yeah, you're not wrong, and that's another reason why we sort of do the style of work that we do, because keeping these cars on the road, maybe not that exact Austin, but keeping these cars on the road, they do, believe it or not, people have sentimental attachment to something like that. Even as bad as it is, there's a lot of vehicles that have got, for good or bad, that cult following. And we're restoring a lot of this stuff, keeping them on the road, and they are worth a lot of money because people want to buy either what they wanted to have or rebuild something that they had when they were younger.
Some of my favourite cars have been the shittiest ones. What about you, Kira? You're only young, Kira, and Nathan's still got plenty of life left in him to get a dream car someday.
I don't know. I like to drive really fast. Hence the Mazda 2 zips around, but maybe a Camaro would be nice. Practicality surf car wise, probably not so much. So if I was thinking a surf car, I'd probably think more of like, I'm looking at a van, but if you had like a full drive van, maybe like raising a Hiace into a full drive or something like that. Practicality, driving up the beach. Yeah, turbo diesel.
Yeah, so it's got the accessibility and the quiver carrying and the camping all in one.
Yeah. And
style, I guess, too, because some of them are pretty sporty these days too.
Yes, if they have nice rims on it, maybe that wouldn't go good with the beach.
How about you, Jack?
I had a quick think about it. I'm going to be boring to say the old good new VW Transporter. Harley actually just did up a really good one. He got one and put a bash plate on it, take it down the beach, got big chunky four-wheel drive tyres on it. I think that's just the ultimate surf car. I don't have to worry about, if you can get some racks on the side, put a bed in, just chuck your boards in, sort yourself out with a little shower. I think that's the dream for me.
That's a super good call. Four-wheel drive van, can't go wrong.
Nate. Nick?
Pardon?
Nath. Sorry, Weeksy. Cut you off. Nath.
I love looking at like those old VW combis. I'd love to drive one of those around. I think I'd feel like a boss driving one of those. Or like after seeing that little bread car that Mickey had a photo of, that could be on the cards. It was beautiful. So maybe one of those.
Yeah, good old Chevy panel van or something could be good. Like mine behind me, it's not up for sale, but you never know. How about you, Weeksy?
Oh, look, I think I've already done my troopy one.
Oh, you already did yours, yeah, troopy. Sorry, Mick.
Mick's owned just about everything. Have you already owned your dream car, Mick, or have you still got something itching you that you need to get?
I'd rather a proper Woody, totally impractical and worth $100,000, but the 4950-51 Ford Woody, that'd do me.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, the single spinner, twin spinner.
I ducked off.
I know one of your mates has got one over there that needs restoring, Matty.
Yeah, on the East Coast. Yeah.
God, you'd know. Yeah, he's in the trade in your area, and he's got one that needs restoring.
Does he really?
Then see Taylor and Botham. Taylor and Botham, the best people in town.
Yeah, metal work. I don't deal with timber, but I'm learning.
Matty, I've actually found a shirt for you, Matt, because I just looked across at my little T-shirt rack, and it seems like the whalebone. We've got the combi on the arm.
Oh, cool! Unreal.
And there's another whalebone long sleever.
Very
This
cool.
one here I thought might be for you, Matt. I reckon this. Can you read
Yeah,
the
that
number?
is cool. Yep. I love that.
the EH 1964 EH with the boards on the roof. So that's
Yeah, I see that.
That's going to be that one behind you in the not too distant future. But surf vehicles play a really big part in our culture, and I think choosing the right car can either make surfing adventures a real pleasure or a real pain.
Sorry, Weeksy, I'm just going to show everyone my dream car as well. Apart from me building one for myself, that Chevy at the moment, but it's actually probably the Valiant that I'm most known for. I'd love to buy that back. That was the Safari wagon there. 66.
What's that?
VC?
VC, yeah.
Yeah. I sold that to fund a few other cars, and yeah, it was really reliable. It was never on the back of a tow truck, and I camped in it. I put the boards in the back and made it into a bit of a show car at the end. But, you know, as I said the other day, before I even would go to a show, I would surf in the morning. And yeah, that was all part of it. And you can see that's a spread of our types of cars that we work on and keep on the road. And as heaps Land Cruiser, that's the Chevy before I pulled into bare metal behind me, imported from Long Beach in California. Heaps of really cool modifications, fits the 9.6 straight down the middle. But yeah, I'm converting my dream car with my Econo line behind me and the Chevy. And I've already got
on the Econo line. You're going to have those bubble windows.
Yeah, I've got it. All Siri's listening to me at the moment. Lucky her. I've got two little bubble windows in there on both sides. So yeah, I've got the circles ready to put in, and yeah, the double sunroof to give it that super 70s look.
Please tell me there's going to be red velvet somewhere.
White velvet.
White
Yeah, white shag pile with the orangutan fur. And then it's got a 351 Windsor motor in it. So it's a huge V8 in it. And for people who are not familiar with these, like in Australia, we had the Sandman panel vans. And we had, you know, sedan-based panel vans, this is an American version, I guess, from the 50s. It's on a sedan chassis, not a pickup truck. But this is basically an F100 van. And inside here, I don't know if you guys can see that. This is the engine right here.
Oh, I thought it was got aircon.
No, that's the engine. So lift that up, and the engine is right next to you when you're driving.
Oh, so it's a sports car. It's a mid-engine.
Well, kind of. Well, I guess there's no nose on them, really. Pretty stubby. But yeah, those cars are really unique for me, and they not bring back memories, but they sort of put me in an era that, yeah, I can just turn the key, get in and drive. And but yeah, nothing can beat I guess a classic Troopy or something, you know, with a modern Troopy with aircon and, you know, super reliable motor and guarantee. And you can pull up to most places, most garages, and they can get a part within, maybe not now during COVID time, you know, within 48 hours or something like that, you can get a Toyota part delivered to you anywhere in Australia. But yeah, I'm torn. The style side of things and the practicality is always
as soon as that question gets asked about one car, it's like, nah, got to have multiple. It's like having a quiver of surfboards. You need a quiver of cars. Like driving around in that thing of rod lines is that big red beast. Driving down the shops to go and get your groceries and that would just be absolutely ridiculous. But heading down the highway, you know, 16-hour drive to Carnarvon or something to go on a surf adventure, it's the perfect vehicle. So I think it falls into those horses for courses category that we seem to speak about just about every week.
That's it.
What's the number one big mistake people make with their surf vans or their surf vehicles that they shouldn't? What's the thing you see the most where you think, oh, if I had been able to get back and talk to you when you first got that car, what aren't people doing they should do, or what are people doing that they shouldn't?
First things first, as we said before, if you're putting money into your car, stuff like the motor, bigger tyres, as Jack said with Harley's van, these modified, and that's very common these days. People are jacking up vans. Before you do anything, you got to make sure the bones of the car, be it new or old, are in good condition. Before you go put a bed in it, before they go put interior in it and put, you know, Dynamat and soundproofing down the floor, coat the floor in rust-proofing paint, because they didn't come from the factory to get used and abused like we plan to do when we're, you know, getting a car. And for surfers, as much as you said before, the marketing is tailored around surfers, they're not made for the constant salt water abuse. So yeah, rust-proofing a vehicle, especially if it's an older one or a four-wheel drive, rust proofing it from the inside out. As I said, the headliners, remove those, rust proofing all the cavities and all the crevices inside the doors. Then worry about decking out the van. Even put some rust proofing paint down on the inside of your car, then deck it out. If people are handy, which everyone seems to be during COVID, take those necessary steps to coat your underneath of your car before you get the salt.
Great advice. You're listening to that, Nathan? Because once your carpet's down, it's never coming up.
Yep. Noted.
Yeah, and I'm predicting we're going to be really busy in the next decade repairing a lot of these camper vans just because there's so many on the market. We do a lot already, but there's so many home conversions in the market, which is not a bad thing at all, but they're drilling into the pillars, they're not sealing anything. It's an afterthought. And a lot of these big setups, they're heavy. They're really heavy. And if you do have a prang, even just a side swipe, you got to think, how's the guy going to repair it if you can't get inside to punch it out? Or he's got to replace a panel. You've got to undo all your setup, and none of it's insured unless you go get a specialized insurance. None of your cars are insured for beds or modifications like that if it's a home job. Even on a brand new car, it's got to be listed in your insurance policy. Otherwise, someone like me who's got an insurance license to repair the car, we can't do it for free, and the insurance certainly won't pay for it if you're not paying your premium. So being transparent with your insurance company and making sure a lot of the stuff's engineered if possible. Even you can DIY it, but working with an engineer, because those new transporters, the troopies, we're talking a lot of money once they kit it out, 100 grand plus, and you don't want to find out that it's not getting covered if you have an accident.
That's really good advice, because I would not have known that.
Actually, Kira, even better than that, even if you don't do any alterations at all, if you just take out your back row of seats, like a lot of people do in the vans, I got around for a little while, took the middle row out so you can sit right at the back of the car with your legs all out if you're a passenger.
Yeah.
But as soon as even by taking out 2 seats, if you don't go and get it re-registered with a different number of seats in it, the insurance companies will just go, nah, you lied about the specifications on your car. So if you're going to remove the seats, it's a real easy thing to do. You go down the pits, they have a look, they go, oh yeah, you've taken 2 seats out. It goes from being a 7-seater to a 5-seater. But if you're going to make those alterations, especially if you're going to have the car for a while, it's definitely worth updating your registration details.
Yeah, that 100% right, Weeksy, because just in this shop here behind me, those combis I showed you before, one's a registered and engineered and insured coffee van. The other one's going to be changed from a 2-seater into an 8-seater, and it's all going to be engineered. It's not expensive if it's done properly. And the other one's going to have the rock and roll camper bed, and it's going to be a 5-seater, but the bed will fold down and it will be legal, an ADR approved, Australian Design Regulation or Rules approved bed, and all that's put in. So if, it's safe if you're in an accident, and it's, you're covered with the insurance. It's sort of peace of mind, because, I'm getting a little bit older now and I've got friends with kids, and you don't know who's going to hop in the car. It's all right, as we said, with the bread van, Mick, in the back, chuck all the boys in the back. And I think Jack's been guilty of that, I'm sure, as well. Just jump in the back of a hire car with way too many people than you're meant to. But, it is a different world now, and you've got to be able to cover yourself in the case of an accident.
You stuff enough people and gear in, and no one can go anywhere anyway. Now, what I'm really curious about, Matt, for your green bus project is, can you still buy those stickers that says, if the van is a rock and don't bother knocking?
Yes, you can, and I have one.
Or the don't laugh, your daughter's probably in here. That was
That's the classic one. The patches and stuff are all available. There's actually a saying between that type of van crew where the outlaw bikers have got the 1% tag, but the van guys call themselves 2%ers, because there's only 2% that are as creepy as those guys. 1% of the population are outlaws and 2% are creeps. The other 2 are creeps. And unfortunately, there's a bad connotation with that's part of my name, the Waxhead, and Mick can attest to that. Surfers had a bad reputation in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and even in the 90s. It wasn't all, even on the world tour, it wasn't all professional training and, gym and stuff like that. There's a lot of naughty stuff, even with the professionals that went on, and can only imagine what happened to that Coleroy bread van, Mick.
I won't go into those details.
Yeah, so it's...
But the old Coleroy boys will have a laugh about that.
There's certainly, there was, Scotty Dillon, who was a huge car connoisseur. I'll just get you up one of his old Valiants on my work page that I posted the other day. Scotty used to have a Sandman panel van, and he drove around right through the 90s and 2000s and that. Do you remember that, Mick?
Yes, I remember that. I've got a photo of Jeanette standing next
The
to
yellow
it.
one.
And someone bought it, and I think someone bought it. It was exactly the same color, and they put the number plate Sin Bin on it, which is very fitting, I thought. But yeah, here's one of Scotty's old Valiants out the front of his factory, and that was in Winbourne Road in Brookvale. And word has it that the guys who started my workshop, Doug Taylor and Jim Botham, this car and a lot of the old Holdens were actually a regular at our workshop. We used to do a lot of the old, we've been here since 1963, and a lot of the surf industry in Brookvale used to get the cars repaired here, which is super cool because we kind of got like a walking museum in here with surfboards as well. So it feels nice. It's all part of the era.
So Matt, just in closing, I was going to say, regardless of how you do up your vehicle and the alterations and things you make to it, I'd suggest having a handbrake that works is a good idea. Mick, you've provided this photo, mate, from up at the bluff. Can you tell us more about what happened to this fella?
Oh, the poor guy just reversed back into the water. They towed it out. It got towed out in the end. Yeah, some poor old guy with a Land Cruiser.
Then it got sold at auction for $10,000 with low kilometres, didn't it?
Yeah. Only ever driven to the church on weekends. Yeah.
Yeah.
They would have got a few cheers from around the various campfires, no doubt.
Oh, yeah, sure.
As our elder statesman, Mick, maybe we can finish up with asking you, what's one thing you've learnt from all your years of driving surf wagons that you wish you'd known 50 years ago?
I'll get them checked out well before you buy them. Have the RAC give them a good look over, or even if you know someone like Matty, he knows what to look for, and have a look. There's a lot of cars out there with bog in them, and there's rust all appearing, and the ordinary person doesn't know where that is.
Yeah, that's such good advice, Mick, because even Weeksy, who's pretty good with cars, he has issues with his turbo, and he bought a second-hand car. And if Weeksy's pretty good with his hands, and he's struggling with this car, a layman who doesn't have access to, which is in the city, that's very common these days too. People don't have the area to work on cars as well. It's not like the old days where you got a manual, to maintain your car and repair it. So it's
and I'll make it clear as well, if I wasn't mechanically minded and didn't have a brother who's a mechanic who can get me parts at wholesale, and if I didn't have a space to work, I would have had to bin that car. So that's a really good point, Matt. And I bought it because it was a good deal, but basically by the end of this week, I'll have spent more money on accessories and things for it than what I paid for the car.
Yeah. And I do, for anyone in Sydney or surrounds, I do a consultation for people who are concerned about the vehicle body, or if they're looking to restore one or something. You can email me and arrange a time, and I can travel, or depending on my surf trips, and just for a small sort of payment, just for my time, I can do this, because I have seen so many friends and customers, buy cars that, they could have had better advice prior to clicking the eBay buy button. And that's another thing in the last decade, the impulse sort of buy. It's become way too easy these days to buy something. Facebook Marketplace, it's like Siri listens to you, and it's true, stuff pops up. You guys will get off, even anyone listening to this, and, Jack's probably going to have a VW Transporter with low kilometres on his Facebook Marketplace for sale.
Sure.
And he'll be rocking up in it next week.
Yeah. And if you like your bank account balance, don't go to carmodsaustralia.com.au. I went on there last night looking for a $30 hose, and I think I racked up about $1,800 worth of. I need one of those. I could do with one of those. So silicon air intakes and all this sort of thing. But what a great conversation, and we've had some awesome photos put up on our Facebook page. So for those of you who are watching this on YouTube and you're not on our Facebook page, you miss out. Michael Cottier's famous Love Bus. I mean, there's some vehicles become iconic, and they've become a real part of our culture and our lifestyle. I know here in WA, some of the buses that Mick shared, the crew that get up to the bluff, and of course the kids at Wedge Island. There's a real pioneering spirit still out there. It's disappearing slowly, but I'm interested in your question, Matty. I want to see the first electric surf vehicle that can do a 2,000k round trip, I'll be on board, mate. Solar charging on the roof.
I think it's those three elements we discussed: the accessibility, the quiver and camping, as well as the style. Because none of us want to drive an absolute, ugly looking. If we can afford it, you don't want to drive anything too ugly as well. So there's an electric car that can, tick all those boxes. I remember LPG became pretty big when I was younger, and every second car at LPG. But now you can't even fill up anywhere with LPG. You guys would have had that problem in WA.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And stupidly expensive for LPG for no apparent reason either. I remember living in WA and LPG was like 45 cents a litre or something. And then I went to the Gold Coast and it was like 32 cents a litre or something like that. Big difference. And the gas was coming from off our coast here in WA. So I don't know how that works. But certainly I've had dual fuel vehicles, and I've had a couple now. My Patrol was LPG, my Commodore was LPG. But the combination of the two works well, because then you can have your LPG tank and then you've still got petrol if you don't. But I think if you had a dedicated LPG car, you really got to plan your trips in advance.
How about you, Mick? Have you had any LPG cars in WA for those long trips?
Oh yeah, not for the long trips. The Buick is on LPG, and that costs as much as my old high ace diesel used to do to run when I do Mandurah to Yelling up for a surf and back. And the Thunderbird was on LPG, but it comes out of the ground in Port Hedland, and it should be selling here for 30 cents a litre, but no, they sell it to Japan for 1 cent a litre or something, and sell it here for $1 a litre. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the whole LPG
And it's ours.
was killed off by the petroleum companies basically because they make more money out of the petrol. But LPG is great, and I don't know. I reckon all government cars should be run on it and all the rest of it. But anyway, we can only work out what the government's up to. What are you up to there, Jack? Are you doing work on the side, or are you trying to bring up some pictures, or what?
So yeah, I just have to do some work. But no, I think that if we can get some, I like the idea of doing electric. I think that if they can find a way to, like you said, running solar panels on the roof, that you don't have to stop every 800k or 600k and park up and try and charge up for a couple of hours, then that'd be pretty cool if you could just keep on rolling and not having to pull over, because you don't want to be pulling over on the side of the road somewhere and hanging around for an hour or two waiting for it to charge up.
Well, epic. Thanks for closing that off, Jack. It's been fun showing you guys around my workshop, and I'm going to post up some pictures that we got, and hopefully Nathan can post them up on the Instagram page as well from some of the people on Insta. And if anyone wishes to get in touch or have a chat, my Instagram page is TB Bodyworks. Look it up and get in touch, because we are just genuine people who like to work on cars, old cars, new cars, and just, I don't do this to make a lot of money. I do it because it's a passion. Could be doing a lot of other things, but just like surfing, it's brings a smile to my face. And if I can make other people smile for a good price and keep them on the road and be stoked when I see them at a comp or at the local beach or a car show, then that makes us all happy here. So stoked, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Matty. That was really informative.
Yeah, good fun show. And thanks, Big Fish, for joining us as well and sharing those photos, and Rod Lyons as well for sending through those inside pictures of Big Red. I always wondered what it looked like on the inside. What do we got happening next week, Shawnee?
I'm just going to ask Kira, did we confirm our guest?
I haven't fully confirmed yet, but I will find out for you and get back to you. Yeah.
It's going to be a secret guest then.
Mystery guest.
Okay. Still waiting to get confirmation.
Such a mystery, we don't even know who it is. So that's
Wow, hey, do we ever know what's going on?
So we're on Brady Bunch View, so maybe we should leave it there. We've gone almost half an hour over, so thanks for staying with us. I think this is going to start a whole nother conversation. Leave us your comments and photos, and show us your best surf bus, your worst surf bus. Tell us your story about your worst or best ever road trip adventure. We'd love to hear all about it. This is the stuff that keeps the creative juices flowing for me. I love having these sort of conversations. Nathan, Kira, you guys got a long life of surf buses ahead of you. And I want to go buy another van now. You've got me again, Matty, and then Jack's spoken about the Overlander kit on Buddy Harley's car. I'm going to end up with another van in a couple of weeks. I can sense it.
But hey, I forgot to mention the George Garino invention that I wanted to chat about. It was a vehicle that could float, and it could drive on the ground, and it could go as like a boat as well. Have you heard about that, Mick?
Oh, the Amphi, not the Amphi car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something along those lines would be, we're talking wild here, but wouldn't that be pretty cool? You'd be able to go out, to your favourite surf spot with a few logs, and then get back on the open road and cruise to get some food.
What are those?
I think a good way, but wipe an Amphi car out, and then it'll go straight to the bottom.
What are those?
You'll make you busy, Matt.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's why Matt's going. Oh, sea cars. But what are those big duck things called that they use up at Agnes?
The aqueduct.
Aqueduct. It's like a massive truck, but it's also a boat. But I could see one of those being turned into a camper. That'd be sick. All right, Matt, you've inspired me.
Yeah. On that note, anyone feel free to comment on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, and get the creative juices flowing. Speak to those engineers too.
Yeah, graphic designers out there, you put together through your ideas, and the engineers will tell you why it won't work. But so maybe the younger artists out there might be able to draw us up a drawing of their ideal surf wagon with all the features and things that it must have. But anyway, we better not keep going any longer because it has been an hour and a half, and I know some of our viewers are very old and need to go and have their little lay down. So wherever you're joining from around Australia, around the world, this has been episode 15 of Oz Longboarding. We look forward to seeing you next week for episode 16 with goodness knows who as a guest. And if you missed it, Albie Pittman's interview from last week was put up yesterday, and just a language advisory on that one for any parents thinking of watching that with their kids. Maybe don't. But cheers for that, Albie. And with no further technical issues, I think that'll be us. On behalf of all the gang, I'm Ben Weeksy. Wave everybody. We're on Brady Bunch mode, and we'll see you next time right here on Oz Longboarding.
I know the talk, the longboard talk.